only have one word to introduce Matt. 1.2 billion. Who wants to have a startup that exits at 1.2 billion? Okay, good. This is the guy that knows how to do it. I'm going to turn it over to Matt. He's going to tell you all about how to do it, and we're so grateful and thankful for having him here. I will also share one more point. Some of you are pilots in this room. I know I am personally also. So Matt and I share a common bond in flying, and we're so excited to have had him last night kicking things off. And hopefully some of you got a chance to interact with him during the aviation event, but you're going to hear a lot more about how to take that dream and create a unicorn and exit successfully. It's all yours.
No pressure. Thanks for that. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Virginia Tech Game Changers staff for inviting me to talk. It is absolutely an honor. I also am, again, apparently standing between everybody and food and beer and party. So I may try to cut this short, but just a little bit. One would think that after 30 years in the workforce, consulting global companies, pitching to literally hundreds of VCs, lecturing at universities or giving talks at global conferences, that I would be sanguine about speaking in front of an audience. No, turns out I have the same butterflies I had when I gave my first book report to my classmates in elementary school. I'm hoping that's just the way nerves about public speaking work and are not a sign of my relative maturity, but I'll leave that up to you. I'm here to talk to you about my journey as a tech entrepreneur. My foundation principle around technology has always been to look for technology that I felt would fundamentally alter the landscapes to which they're applied. And that's those landscapes have gotten bigger and more ambitious as time goes on. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I look for the next big thing, my methods that I've used, how I convince investors to come along for the ride, and kind of what hasn't worked, and the lessons I've learned. I'm going to walk you through the 5 companies which I've co-founded in my 30 years, with an occasional foray into my experiences working for companies at which I was simply an employee. I'm going to try to extract those lessons at each company. Hopefully, these lessons that I've learned will resonate with you and will be helpful to you. But I'm going to start off actually by talking a little bit about my pre-work background. We're all a product of our childhoods. And I have found it's easier to understand the how and why of someone that you meet by understanding, if I can, the forces that shaped them. So let's get going. So, born in 1970, I am, in truth, a walking Gen X meme. No doubt about it. You can get a pretty good idea of my childhood by watching Gen X reels on social media. Latchkey kid, out until the streetlights came on, pretty much feral in the summer, drinking from a hose, you name it, right? And you want to know something? I loved that as a kid. I am the youngest of 6, 3 boys, 3 girls. And yes, as the last child, I was an accident, born about 4 years after my closest sibling, and no, they've never let me forget that. The first in his family to go to college, let alone get an advanced degree. My father was a PhD in fluid dynamics who worked for the USDA. He spent his life building computer models and eventually became one of the foremost experts in the world, traveling the world, helping various countries implement the technology that he developed. I got my sense of curiosity, my love of mathematics, engineering, and computers from him. He was a very, very early of adopters of computers at the USDA. And he partnered with Colorado State University to get access to their mainframe. One day, when I was about 10 years old, he let me into his office and let me get onto the teletype interface to the CSU mainframe, where I promptly wrote a program and submitted it. I had no idea what I was doing, and I set the CSU mainframe into an infinite loop. At that time, talking 1980, you paid by the minute for CPU on a mainframe. Luckily, CSU was nice, killed the program, and did not charge the USDA nor my father for that. My mother started her career as a secretary and ended her career as a program analyst, also at the USDA. I learned how to multitask from my mother. She worked, ran the household, took care of 6 kids. You name it, she did it. I'm pretty sure she didn't have a hot meal or more than 3 hours of consecutive sleep for at least 10 years. My parents believed strongly in education, and they scrimped and they sacrificed to send all of us to a Catholic education system. University, however, was a very different matter. My parents believed that at 18, you were an adult. And while you were expected to go to university, you were expected to pay for it yourself. So it was an interesting transition from 17 to 18. Yeah. I was born outside of Philadelphia. I moved to Colorado when I was 2. Moved to Maryland when I was 5, moved back to Colorado when I was 10, moved back to Maryland when I was 16. I went to 4 grade schools, one middle school and 2 high schools. When you move that much, you learn a lot about self-reliance.
You didn't have a lot of money?
We never went without. We always had food and a warm, safe home. Family vacation consisted of 2 parents, 6 kids, a dog, and a pop-up trailer. And by the time I was 16, I'd been in 45 states. Took me another 30 years to get the last 5. I saw what it is like to be in a small, economically depressed town in the middle of nowhere. And I saw what it was like to live packed together in a big city. But most of all, I learned to listen and try to put myself in someone else's shoes when I was exposed to those environments. Now, my siblings and I are also very competitive, pathologically so, to be honest. We can and will turn anything into a contest. My brothers and I once invented a game that included a plastic samurai sword, a tennis ball, very large movable bases, think a 4x4 post set in concrete, and a flaming tiki torch. To date, only 2 people have ever scored in that game. But that sense of competition, properly channeled, has been a driving force for me and has served me very well throughout my career. But even more importantly, my siblings and I share a sense of curiosity. Curiosity is the soul of innovation. We all want to know how and why things work, which led us to generally dismantling everything in the house to rebuild it into something new. We built 3-wheeled bicycles, toboggan runs in the winter, go-karts in the summer, which is a twofer, because if a lawnmower doesn't have an engine, you don't have to mow the lawn, right? We built a replica of the bridge of the Starship Enterprise and a burglar alarm out of a pinball machine and erector set parts. Personally, my path to a degree in electrical engineering started when I was 9. I really wanted to understand this stuff called electricity, so I shoved an antenna wire into an outlet, see what would happen. I blew the circuit breaker for the house. I made my pajamas smoke and my hair stand on end, and with typical 9-year-old wisdom, I immediately shouted, I didn't do it. Curiosity may kill the cat, but luckily, it didn't kill me that day. Again, curiosity is the foundation of innovation, and I'm pleased to see that curiosity reflected in the faces of everybody that I've met down here over the last few days. Before I move on to my actual career, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my grandfather. My father in grad school and my mother working to support the family. My grandparents stayed with us to take care of me before I was old enough to go to school. My grandfather grew up very, very poor in Washington, D.C. And he worked incredibly hard his entire life, whether it was running booze during Prohibition, maybe where I'd gotten a certain set of flexibility. He was a Marine in the South Pacific in World War II. And he drove delivery trucks. That was his highest paying job. But he persevered. And just a few of the things I learned from him, duty and honor, that your children should have the opportunity to surpass you. that you do whatever it takes to provide for your family. And to that end, I've shoveled horse manure. I've mowed lawns, I've cleared snow and ice, I've washed dishes, I've cooked, crawled through rat-infested tunnels, whatever it took to earn an honest day's wage. He taught me to fight for what I believe in and to show empathy and compassion, both in winning and in losing. He taught me to pursue my dreams and not to let a setback get me down. So now that you have an idea of what shaped me as a child, let's talk a little bit about work in my career. I started earning money when I was 12. I worked at paper routes, I mowed lawns, I was a trail guide at a bar, whatever I could do. But my first real job of significance came when I was a senior in high school. I was a dishwasher in a restaurant, and I worked my way up to being a cook and a part-time manager by the time I was 19. Why is this significant, you might ask? Working in a restaurant? Because at 19, after 2 years working at that restaurant, I had to make my first career decision. The summer before my sophomore year of college, I got a summer position at the Division of Engineering Services at the National Institutes of Health, as well as at the restaurant. So my boss at the NIH gave me an incredible project to work on, pretty much solo. I got to instrument the centralized chilled water system, developing efficiency curves, and figuring out how to optimize cooling capacity versus power consumption for the entire campus. It was a great success, and we managed to cut something like $1 million a month off of the electricity bill at the NIH. So, come fall, the NIH offered me a part-time job. It'd be an easy decision, you think, right? No. Working as an engineer or an engineering student, I made $3 an hour at the NIH. I made $9 to $10 an hour as a cook and a manager at a restaurant. And I had bills to pay. I had to pay that tuition bill. So I tried to work both jobs, plus take a full-time engineering course load. I think we could probably imagine how that turned out. It turns out it's really easy to pull a D in multivariable calculus. So I had a choice to make. Do I work in my chosen career field at 1/3 the money? Or do I take the chance of getting career experience? This was my first experience, or first exposure, I have to say, to a short-term tactical gain versus a long-term strategic move. Now, I chose the long-term strategic move, and I quit working at the restaurant. I know it is not always possible to make those kind of decisions, right? But if feasible, if you can, try to make the strategic move. It generally pays dividends in the long run. It certainly did for me. The NIH ended up employing me throughout college. They paid my tuition and my books for the last 2 years of school. And I ended up with a degree under the cooperative education program. But more importantly, they gave me a full-time job right out of school. And this is where I had to make another critical decision. See, at this time, PC networking, which we all take for granted, was primarily a grassroots effort. You know, mainframes ruled the day. But I remember looking, consciously making the decision, are PCs going to fundamentally alter the world in which we live? And I looked at the market, the potential market for personal computers at this point. They're dropping in price, right? They're becoming available to everybody. Microsoft DOS/Windows has potential. I'll put it that way. So it had a huge potential market, and it had huge potential capabilities. So I switched out of doing building automation systems and control systems, and I went into PC networking. I wanted to understand computer systems. I thought there's a market that's going to change things. Now, during this time, I not only honed my skills on networking technologies, but I developed a very deep, broad set of technologies with Microsoft's products, to the point where I basically developed a reputation as an expert in the, at least in the DC area, which led me to starting my first company. And I'm going to come out and say it. it was a complete and utter failure. It failed not because I wasn't capable. I was. Nor because there wasn't any demand. There was. People did not know how to implement Microsoft technologies at this point in time. My first company failed because I was scared. I tried to start an IT consulting company and maintain a full-time position someplace else, right? You couldn't do it. It just didn't work. I didn't have the confidence in myself, not the technical abilities. I didn't have the confidence in my ability to develop more business. I didn't plan for it, nor know how to develop and implement a marketing and business plan. In short, I cut my own throat and I dissolved the business about 9 months later. Looking back, I made a lot of mistakes, and they all boil down to the following. I didn't take time to learn what it was to run a business. Now, at this time, programs like you have here at Virginia Tech for entrepreneurship didn't exist, or if they did, I certainly wasn't aware of them. So, I didn't have that ecosystem. So take advantage of what you have here, because it's going to teach you what it takes to run a business. But more importantly, I didn't believe in myself, and I sabotaged my own efforts. So kind of ultimately, what did I learn out of that? Take the time to understand what you're getting into, right? The nuts and bolts, day-to-day grind of running a business requires a lot of attention to detail. Every moment of glory, whatever that glory is, getting your client's, computer system to stop crashing, or developing a new jet engine, whatever it is. For every moment of glory, there are hours and hours of labor involved behind the scenes. You have to believe in yourself. Starting a business is not a halfway effort. It's full-time work of your existing job, plus at least another half-time job doing the nuts and bolts. And it's only worth doing if you truly love what you're attempting to do. I tell my kids this all the time. Don't chase the money. Chase your passion, what you want to do, the thing that excites you. Because when things are tough, if you're excited about what you're doing and what you're developing, you'll get through it. Right? That will guide you there. So my second company was a company called Bry Technologies. I started in 2001. So my previous employer had been purchased in 99 by a joint venture between two companies, neither of whom I wished to work for. So I made plans to start my new company with a coworker at the time of our exit. We had non-compete agreements and a very litigious former boss. So we honored those non-competes. I worked as an independent consultant. He worked at a bank. But we took those 2 years to plan our company. We made a business plan. We took time to learn those nuts and bolts that I mentioned earlier. Divvied up the duties. And we really talked about what it is we wanted to achieve with this business. Were we looking to build a product, hardware, software, consulting services? Did we want to raise money and look for multiples on return? Or were we looking for a lifestyle business that provided a comfortable life for us? At that point in time, both of us were looking to start families, have children. So we went with the lifestyle route. So we actually started our business with personal checks and guaranteed by our houses, and just focused on providing consulting services. Now, on a technology note, I want to say a Microsoft consulting business, which I had established my reputation and my business partner reputation, had matured, right? And it was really, really difficult to differentiate our services from dozens of other competitors in the area. Now, I like to attend technical conferences, not necessarily for the sessions, though those are usually interesting, but I like to walk the trade show floor to see what's happening out in the world. It was at one of these conferences where I came across a little known company at the time, a company by the name of VMware. So for those of you who don't know that company, they are the reason that cloud computing exists. They managed to virtualize on the x86 processor, which nobody's ever done, and that is what basis for Amazon Web Services is. That's the basis for Google Cloud. That's the basis for Microsoft Cloud. x86 virtualization. They created it. But at the time, they were a 1.0 solution. It means it was rough, it was buggy, and it was difficult to use. But after spending several hours with the folks from VMware, really talking to them and trying to understand what their goals, their dreams, their roadmap was, I decided they had something exciting. I thought they had something that was going to shift the world of technology again. So my partner and I then spent quite a bit of time talking between ourselves about what the issues our clients faced were. Right? At the time, we're talking expensive, underutilized hardware, shrinking IT budgets, power and cooling constrained server rooms. Right? And we mapped out how that technology could address all of those problems. And then 9/11 hit. And while many businesses dried up, ours exploded. You see, 9/11 brought all of those other issues to the forefront. It also brought something new to small and medium-sized businesses, the need for disaster recovery. Right? So we built out a whole suite of solutions on top of the VMware platform, established ourselves as their first authorized consulting company and enterprise partner, and we went to work. The next 8 to 9 years, we established ourselves as the go-to company if you wanted to implement VMware technology, to the point where if you engaged VMware's professional services and you were east of the Mississippi, you got somebody from my company. Our customers included the likes of the Federal Reserve, Citigroup, the NIH, VMware themselves, Levi Strauss, on and on. So kind of what are those key learnings that I got out of that first company? Preparation is key. Plan it out as best you can beforehand, recognizing, of course, that no battle plan survives meeting the enemy. Build the business structure that meets your needs as a co-founder. Are you looking to build and raise a lot of money and ride the rocket ship? Or is your life as a whole perhaps better suited to a lifestyle type company where it's a slower pace? Plan out the division of responsibilities with your partners and your coworkers. Understand who's doing what within it, but constantly stay out and look out for the technology that solves your customers' business problems. Technology is great. I love technology, but if it doesn't solve a business problem, it's not going to go anywhere. Don't just get enamored of their technical capabilities. Spend the time to analyze those capabilities and map them against the problems they might be able to solve. But when you see an opportunity in the market, move confidently and fast. Otherwise, somebody else is going to get there first. And when you're ready, go all in. Establish yourself as the expert. And that means not just getting the technical certifications, improving it. That means engaging in marketing and communications and building mind share. That's all absolutely critical to building a successful company. I'm going to move on to my third company. By 2009, I was feeling a bit burned out. Not because of the 80-hour work week, but I had stopped learning. It was the same thing every day, same solutions applied. I'd grown a lifestyle business about as far as it could go without a capital infusion to fund expansion. Now, cloud computing via Amazon Web Services was still relatively new, but was starting to make waves and had all the earmarks, to me, of another fundamental shift in the world of IT. Now we're going to take all of these systems running inside of server rooms, get them out of companies, four walls, into a cloud at someplace. We had to figure out what we were going to do to develop a practice around cloud computing internally, raise money to expand, to address that market. Do we stay small and comfortable? Should we merge with another consulting company? We had two other consulting companies looking to merge with us. Someone was moving our cheese. For those of you who've never read that book, I recommend it. We needed to shift our strategy. But at this point, we were approached by a couple of entrepreneurs with a bold idea. They wanted to raise a significant amount of capital and start a global cloud computing company of their own. It's a competitor to Amazon Web Services. My company, Bry, would provide the backbone of the technical expertise. And most people nowadays hear this and they think, what was I smoking? Right, to consider going up against Amazon. Now, they weren't quite the player back then that they are today. But more importantly, their technical architecture was not designed, well, I should say, was designed to support what are known as Web 2.0 applications. Enterprises at that time had tens, hundreds of millions of dollars invested in legacy software products, which were not designed and architected for Web 2.0, right? That left a prime opportunity for us to build a cloud designed for those types of applications, right? The technical challenge was significant, but the business opportunity was there. Customers were asking for a solution. So we negotiated a deal with these two co-founders, these two entrepreneurs, signed on and became co-founders of a company called VirtuStream. Now, how did we get VCs to sign up for such an insane idea? Because we raised $40 million right off the bat. Over the course of the company, we had 5 rounds, raised a total of about $150 million. So first off, we were all seasoned entrepreneurs at that point. The VCs we worked with either knew us already, or they were able to go do the due diligence. So those VCs talked to VMware, they talked to EMC, they talked to Microsoft. They said, do these guys actually know what they're doing? Right? We showed them the need. We built the financial case, the TAM, the SAM, exactly how we would go attack that market. We were the recognized technical experts. We had the reputation, we had the skills, and we had the drive. We also had multiple paths to achieve our goal, right? We knew, hey, we take this route, something happens there, we can shift this way and take this path to the goal, right? Showing multiple ways to get there was for us very, very important. We oozed confidence, right? You would have thought we were the cockiest SOBs ever when you walk in and talk to those VCs. And we talked really, really fast and very convincingly. You have to project confidence in yourself, your team, in your company, in your product. There's a scene from a book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where an AI-driven computer, Deep Thought, is describing a rival AI. Deep Thought believed that the rival could talk the legs off of a donkey, but only he could convince it to go for a walk afterwards. I'm telling you, we got that donkey to walk. So we raised 40 million, we acquired data centers, we acquired other companies, and we started building our product. I'm not going to get into the technical challenges of building a cloud solution for applications that have no cloud awareness, right? Running across continents, across oceans. There's so many lessons there, I couldn't begin to address them, even a fraction of them here tonight. Now, I had a series of roles at VirtuStream. There were 5 co-founders. I moved around the most during our tenure at VirtuStream. I was something of a fixer at the company, where I would go in and focus on areas that needed special attention, if you will. Now, for the bulk of my time there, I ran what was known as cloud platform services, which was our core business line. So I had full P&L, I had operations, I had architecture, design, R&D, vendor relationships, you name it. It was responsible for the cloud platform, it was mine. It was a global operation. When I started, we had offices in Bethesda, Maryland, McLean, Virginia, Atlanta, San Francisco, and London. When I left running that organization, I had additional locations in Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Paris, Tokyo, Singapore, and Sydney. I needed to upskill myself as a leader. Separated by time zones, language barriers, cultural differences, job focus. I needed to get these people to work as a team. That's what I want to talk about now, leadership. Now, I've been a leader for years at this point. 22, fresh out of college. I was the on-site project manager on a government contract. I'd helped to build and grow a Microsoft consulting practice. I'd already built and exited the company. those were small organizations, never more than 20 people. More importantly, all of those employees were local, had similar employment backgrounds, and the tasks at hand were very homogeneous. We were doing Microsoft consulting, we were doing VMware consulting. I now had people spread out all over the world. Business goal of global expansion. Again, people from different countries, different cultures, different primary languages, and they often had conflicting job requirements, incentives. Think for a minute about what the job is of R&D. Just to get new technology, new stuff out there in the field, new product out, right? Think about the operations team trying to make sure that Coca-Cola's SAP system is available 24/7, right? They don't want the R&D or the new product people touching their stable operations, right? The R&D and product development guys are like, no, you got to use the product, you got to get the product out there. There's a lot of potential conflict in those kind of situations, and all of them were looking for me to provide guidance and leadership. Now, I'm a fan of physical interaction. I like to meet face to face. For me, there's incredible value in meeting at the water cooler, walking down the street to grab a cup of coffee, and just chatting. See, technology is great. Slack, Zoom, Google Meet, social media platforms, they have their place. Frankly, though, technology only enables communication. It does not and cannot build a connection. The connections are the foundations of relationships. Sometimes as human beings, especially in times of stress, and I'm sure a lot of you know, and if you don't, you will, building a company is stressful. When we're in a time of stress, we need to be physically present with others. It's built into us as human beings that we need to interact with each other. A like to a post or a response to a tweet doesn't cut it. Again, and I can't repeat it enough, connections are the foundations of relationships. To be a leader, you need to build a relationship with your employees. I'm not saying you must be friends, right? That's not likely to happen. But you, as a leader, need to be friendly. Get to know your employees. Don't pry, but try to get some idea of the context of their lives outside of work. And it has to be a genuine interest. If it's a false interest, it's going to fall flat on its face. But if you genuinely exhibit interest in people's lives, it builds context, it builds trust, and it builds that relationship. So meet your employees in person, right? Encourage them to meet each other in person when you're not around. Support it. Tell your employees you'll pay for happy hour. Let them go spend some time with each other and get to know each other. Are they going to be friends? Maybe, maybe not, but they need to work together, even when they don't agree with each other. If you, as a founder, need to get on a plane and fly around the world to build these relationships, do it. I'll tell you, I traveled 40+ weeks per year for several years. In the long run, it pays off in spades. Because when it hits the fan, people know each other and can trust each other. They trust you as a leader. You'll solve the problems. Now, you need to hold yourself and your employees accountable. Accountable for their actions, accountable for their goals, accountable for getting their work done. And these can be really difficult conversations when somebody's not performing up to par. If you have a relationship with somebody, those conversations can be far more productive than if you don't know anything other than, hey, they work in engineering and, their birthday is, July 4th, right? It allows you the greater context of what's happening in their lives. Maybe they've got some stressor that's occurring outside of work in their home life, right? Work and your home life, as much as we'd like to keep them completely separate, they're not. They affect each other. If you can understand what's going on, you can build solutions to help them out and solve the problems you have with your team, but you need to hold them accountable. Doesn't mean it's an ass chewing, right? but it allows you to solve the problem. Right? Don't think of it as a reprimand. You hold an accountability conversation properly, you do it in the broader context of your team, it actually builds trust. When you're seen holding someone accountable for getting their work done properly, your other employees are going to trust you to lead them. Right? But if they see that you don't hold people accountable, they're not going to trust you to get things done. Active listening is one of my favorite comm styles, right? For those of you not familiar with it, it's based on repeating back to your conversational partner what you heard, give them a chance to confirm or refine what they said. So start a response with something like, I'm hearing, or this is what I heard. It sends the message that you're paying attention, and it minimizes miscommunication. I would say 90% of the problems that I've run into can be rooted down to miscommunication. Right? People not understanding what the other person is saying. You know, leading from the front. Simple to say, hard to do, but basically don't ask your employees to do something you wouldn't do yourself. Right? There were plenty of times when I found myself crawling on the floor of data centers, stringing fiber. Right? Because it needed to be done. Treat them as professionals. I learned to treat people as professionals. And what I mean that is, you know, hire and treat them as such. Don't you assign a task? You establish the expectations of the output and the timing, and leave them to do their jobs. You don't have to micromanage them. Professional knows what they're doing, right? It's only when they don't meet the expectations that you have a problem. And then only if they didn't give you fair warning. So typically for me, sit down with somebody and say, hey, I need X. We figure out exactly what X means, and we say, let's have that done by Tuesday. Right? I don't have a problem if they come to me on Thursday or Friday and say, I don't think I'm going to make Tuesday because of X, Y, and Z. But if they come to me on Monday night or Tuesday and say, I didn't get it done, then we have a problem, right? Just it basically comes down to communication, set the expectations. And really have a sense of humor and have fun. It goes a long, long way in a company. I like to say that if I'm joking, everything's okay, even when faced with problems. I, for instance, was well known for getting pictures taken of top executives and having them photoshopped into something completely ridiculous. And then sharing all of those photos every Christmas with the entire company. For instance, I turned all the co-founders into the characters from Despicable Me. Personally, I was a minion. Another time, I turned one of my co-founders into the Vince who stole Christmas. You know, these little things, kind of frivolous, go a long way into easing tension when things are tough and allowing people to see their coworkers and bosses as people with whom they can relate. You know, in 2015, we sold Virtustream to EMC Corporation in an all-cash unicorn transaction. It was a really good day. We were really happy. We were, however, a work hard, play hard company. We were very professional, but at the same time, we had a lot of fun. On the day we closed the deal, we went from roughly 300 employees to well over 2,000, almost 3,000 employees, as we absorbed a significant chunk of EMC into our organization. EMC, and so we had to integrate into this multi-billion-dollar behemoth with a very different culture. Joe Tucci, who is the chairman of EMC Corporation at the time, measures his life in quarters, 3-month increments. He would literally say, this is the 37th quarter. This is the 38th quarter, right? We didn't think that way. It was a very different culture, very different leadership style. But you know, what did we do? Well, I can tell you, every single senior executive spent the next 3 weeks traveling, or 4 weeks traveling, and we met with everyone we could face to face, and we started building those relationships, right? And then we set the expectations. You know, we lead from the front, we communicate, we respect professionalism, and we keep them laughing. A year later, Dell Technologies bought EMC, The largest technology purchase in history at the time. I think it was $68 billion. Guess what we had to do? All of it all over again. Now we were a 200,000 person company. So to summarize just a few of the lessons I learned there. Starting back to the very beginning of it, right? Pay attention to upcoming companies and solutions that can affect your business. Cloud computing, in our case, Amazon. Find that niche market that allows you to compete with those bigger players. There's a term they use in some business schools anywhere called the lonely spot on the strategic frontier. Find that spot and exploit it. Absolutely project confidence. Even when in the back of your head, you're like, can I do that? I don't know. Do your homework up front. Set expectations. Establish those relationships. That's what's gonna pull you through the hard times. Treat them as professionals, communicate actively, and do it all with a smile and a sense of humor. Or the bad times, and there will be bad times, will crush you. 2018, I was utterly burned out. I'd been working 80-hour weeks for 20 years. I'd lost focus. More importantly, I had lost the joy that I felt at work. I wasn't learning. Not because there wasn't anything to learn. I just was not capable of learning at that time. And that's when I decided to leave Dell/VirtuStream. I walked away from a very lucrative position because it didn't mean anything to me anymore. So I took some time to sleep, to reconnect with my family, to start exercising again, get healthy or healthier. I learned to fly. I decided to achieve a long-held dream of getting a pilot's license. And after a few months, I felt the need to learn again. So I did what every normal person does. I went back to school. So I decided to get my MBA from MIT. Now, why in the world would a successful serial entrepreneur decide to get an MBA? It's not to add the extra letters to my email signature. It's not because it was going to open job opportunities for me at that point. At that point in my career, it added zero value to my resume. It was because no matter how much you think you know, there's always more to learn. Now, there were 5 co-founders at VirtuStream with varying skill sets. Now we let each founder focus on what they did best. There were entire sections of VirtuStream which I had very little exposure to, or purely in support of. I decided I needed to know a lot more about those skill sets if I was going to start another company. Because I am addicted to entrepreneurship. I'm addicted to starting companies, and I wasn't ready to ride off into the sunset at this point. So while at MIT, I was looking for the next foundational technology shift, again, that core thesis that I built my career around. And I settled on AI as the next technology wave. Bandwidth was low and low latency and plentiful. Cloud providers had vast amounts of compute power. AI ML algorithms were advancing at a breakneck pace. So what to do? Beyond the obvious of teaching myself all I could learn about AI, I needed to find a problem to solve. I may have mentioned this before, but it's a mantra to live by. Technology for technology's sake will always fail. The world is littered with cool technology that went nowhere. It absolutely must solve a real and tangible problem. So in a late night conversation with some classmates, most likely in a bar, all right, definitely in a bar, we were discussing how we hated YouTube videos being interrupted by commercials. For that matter, we hated how television was interrupted by commercials. Wouldn't it be cool if advertising was part of the video content itself? Could we use AI to analyze streaming video and change its content on the fly to suit the end user? Now, I'll be the first to admit, in retrospect, we don't really need more advertising. But we proceeded anyway. I was the CTO. One of my classmates, Anna, who was a marketing executive, had the skill set there, was CEO. And my other classmate, Ash, who was an executive at CBS, was the chief operating officer. We got the tech working. I could stream a video on my phone, and perhaps I'd see the actor interact with a Starbucks cup. Someone else would see a Dunkin' Donuts cup. Or I'd see Cheerios and they'd see Frosted Flakes. It was really cool. We had context, contacts and interest and major streaming and broadcast services. And then the bottom fell out. See, this little irritant named COVID-19 came along and shut the world down. Specifically, from our perspective, we were an ad space multiplier. And everywhere around the world, advertising budgets were cut often to zero. So simple economics, supply and demand. No demand, suppliers go belly up, upset. But what did I learn? Sometimes factors completely beyond your control can kill you through no fault of your own. Putting it another way, stuff happens. That goes on to my fifth company, the one I'm currently the CEO of. It was in fact inspired by COVID-19. Who remembers waiting in line for hours to get a swab shoved up their nose? Right? And then waiting 3 days to find out that you were just fine 3 days earlier, told you nothing about how you were right then and there. I didn't think that seemed to be the most optimal path to solve the problem. So, and it seemed to my co-founders and I that there had to be a better way to detect pathogens, one based on physics. We got to work. Now, it took a lot longer than expected or desired. I believe that's one of Murphy's laws. But thankfully, COVID testing is not really a requirement anymore. But the need to rapidly detect and identify the presence of harmful bacteria is a growing need in our food supply, hospitals, clinics, and on and on. So we have combined spectroscopy of all types, whether you're talking about Raman, FTIR, sorbents, hyperspectral cubes, to detect and identify in minutes rather than hours or days as it's currently necessary, the presence of over 30 different harmful bacteria at this point in time. And that library is growing. We can even tell you the difference, discriminate between antibiotic susceptible bacteria and antibiotic resistant bacteria based on their spectral response, entirely based off of the way they interact with the electromagnetic spectrum. And now we're starting off in food safety and rapidly moving on to human health solutions. And that's just the beginning. The technology can be used to solve enough software. It's a platform. I actually hardware agnostic. I don't care if I'm working with a Thermo Fisher device or a Ariba device, an Inseam device, doesn't matter. What I care about is the data package and analyzing. And we can solve so many problems. Quality assurance, quality control, say in pharmaceutical manufacturing, materials provenance, wastewater analysis, oil coolant monitoring in heavy industry, greenhouse gas detection and quantification. So many possible uses that we're focused on the software platform, and we're looking for partners to develop solutions on top of our technology. So we recently closed our Series A. I am apparently a masochist. I've chosen to raise money in two of the world's worst money raising environments, 2009, right after the financial crisis of 2008, and in 2023, when there's plenty of dry powder, but nobody was cutting checks. So for those of you who have pitched and or pitching, and by the way, for the students who pitched earlier today, congratulations, get ready to do it a couple hundred more times if you're going to go raise money. I spoke to hundreds of VCs from January 2020, 2024, 2023 through my series close in May of this year. Hundreds of VCs, right? And it's all about finding the VC who buys into your vision, your story. When a VC makes that seed investment or even that Series A, they're investing in you. They believe in you, right? Yes, they believe in your product. They believe that it has capabilities, but they're investing, they believe you can take that company forward, right? So you got to find that person, that VC you can build that relationship with. and get them to trust you. And we closed our Series A in May. Guess what I started thinking about the day after we closed and those checks transferred? Series B. Already thinking Series B. I'm having Series B conversations at the same time as yes, we are generating revenue through government contracts. We're getting our food safety MVP out the door here in a couple of weeks. I'm already focused on Series B. Right? It's just the way of it. So what have I learned so far at Hyperspectrum? That I still love technology. I still love starting companies. Most importantly, that I'm still curious and I love to learn. I'll let you know how it goes. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope that you found something valuable in my journey. It's still ongoing.
That's an amazing, just keynote. I don't know about you guys, but it was just so powerful to me. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming and sharing with us and taking the time. You drove all the way down here.
It has been my absolute pleasure to be down here.
Yes. Just enjoyed so much, getting to know you.
Thank you.
So right now we have Game Changer, the block party happening, with our Nashville artists. It's already kicking off. We'd love to have you guys join us over there. And maybe Matt will be over there, so you can
Yes, I will.
give him, grab him and ask him a few questions and talk to him.
If you have a song you were gonna play with.
Yeah,
Nope,
with the band.
nope, nobody wants to hear me sing. Only if I can turn the radio up so loud I can't hear my own voice, then I will sing.
We don't really have time for questions, but he will be over there, so please feel free to grab him and talk to him. And just tell him what a wonderful job he did, because I was really just blown away by your talk, so I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. Thank you guys all for coming to Game Changer this week.